Clark Gable's controversial farewell, "Gone with the Wind." It remains one of the most quoted lines in cinema history. "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." A declaration so cold, so decisive, it encapsulated the entire bitter, tumultuous relationship between Rhett Butler and Scarlett O'Hara. Gone with the Wind, released in 1939, was more than just a film. It was an epic adaptation of Margaret Mitchell's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, set against the backdrop of the American Civil War and Reconstruction era. Directed by Victor Fleming, with production overseen by the ambitious and sometimes volatile David O. Selznick, the film aimed to be nothing short of a masterpiece. It starred Vivien Leigh as the indomitable Scarlett O'Hara and Clark Gable as Rhett Butler, the charming, cynical blockade runner who ultimately steals Scarlett's heart, only to be worn down by her selfishness and immaturity. The original novel's closing line, "My dear, I don't give a damn," captured Rhett's weariness perfectly. David O. Selznick, never one to shy away from a fight, was determined to preserve the line's raw emotional impact. After considerable debate, the censors reluctantly approved the line under a special exemption, citing its essential dramatic necessity. But the controversy didn't end there. Clark Gable himself was reportedly uneasy about delivering such a blunt farewell. According to crew members, Gable believed the line was too harsh, too final. Nevertheless, Selznick insisted. The words of a man defeated not by war or circumstance, but by the futility of loving someone incapable of changing. Cary Grant's genuine fear North by Northwest. Cary Grant, with his effortless charm and signature cool, seemed unshakable on screen. But in one of North by Northwest's most unforgettable scenes, it was genuine fear, unscripted, raw, and entirely authentic that helped create cinematic history. North by Northwest, directed by Alfred Hitchcock and released in 1959, stands as a masterclass in suspense and intrigue. The scene is set in the barren expanse of an Indiana cornfield. Thornhill, played by Grant, awaits a mysterious contact, only to find himself stalked by a low-flying biplane intent on his destruction. What audiences didn't know is that Grant's reactions, ducking, stumbling, visibly unnerved, weren't entirely performance. Hitchcock, known for his meticulous planning, desired authenticity above all. He wanted Grant's terror to leap off the screen. Reportedly, Hitchcock informed Cary Grant about the plane's general action, but Grant was deliberately kept uninformed about the plane's exact flight path during certain takes. When the biplane swooped alarmingly close, kicking up dust and debris, Grant's startled movements and clear discomfort weren't rehearsed, they were the very real, very human reactions of a man unexpectedly facing danger. The result, one of cinema's most tense and enduring sequences, capturing the vulnerability beneath Grant's typically unflappable exterior. "You talking to me? Taxi driver." There are some lines so iconic, so deeply ingrained in pop culture, that it's easy to forget they were never in the script to begin with. Few lines exemplify that better than Robert De Niro's chilling, improvised words in Taxi Driver.
"You talking to me?"
What became one of the most quoted lines in film history was never written down at all. It was the product of instinct, frustration, and raw artistic energy, a defining moment that could have easily never happened. Directed by Martin Scorsese and released in 1976, Taxi Driver follows Travis Bickle, a lonely, mentally unstable Vietnam War veteran navigating the grimy, decaying streets of New York City. The film's screenplay, written by Paul Schrader, was sparse and haunting, filled with internal monologues and observations about loneliness and societal collapse. Robert De Niro, already immersed in his method acting approach, seized the opportunity. Fresh off attending a Bruce Springsteen concert, De Niro brought that same energy to Travis Bickle's fragile, unraveling mind. Standing in front of the mirror, gun drawn, De Niro began to improvise. "You talking to me? You talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here." Director Martin Scorsese, watching from behind the camera, understood immediately that something special was happening. The way De Niro plays it, shoulders tense, eyes sharp, voice low, reveals both the character's simmering rage and the depths of his isolation. The line, "You talking to me?" became more than a piece of dialogue. It became a cultural landmark. It captured the raw vulnerability and dangerous unpredictability of not just Travis Bickle, but of an entire generation disillusioned by the broken promises of the American dream. The subway grate, the 7-year itch. It might just be the most famous image in cinema history. Marilyn Monroe standing over a New York City subway grate as her white dress billows skyward. It's been imitated, parodied, and plastered across posters for nearly 70 years, starring Marilyn Monroe as the girl, a charming, unattainable fantasy figure for a restless married man, played by Tom Ewell. In the script, the subway grate scene was meant to be a simple, flirtatious moment. Monroe stands over the grate, and as a passing train rumbles beneath, a gust of air lifts her skirt slightly, adding a touch of playful allure. That was the plan, a quick, harmless visual gag. But when director Billy Wilder decided to shoot the scene on location in Manhattan, everything changed. Wilder turned the shoot into a media event, filming at Lexington Avenue and 52nd Street in front of hundreds of spectators, reporters, and photographers. Wilder ultimately reshot the scene on a closed Hollywood soundstage. But by then, the damage, or rather, the legend, was done. The publicity photos from the New York shoot became more famous than the movie itself. Newspapers around the world printed the images, solidifying Monroe as a symbol of beauty and classic glamour and fueling endless debates about propriety, fame, and Monroe's private life. The incident also marked a breaking point in Monroe's personal world. Her husband at the time, baseball icon Joe DiMaggio, was present for the shoot. Reports say he was furious, humiliated by the public display of Monroe's rising skirt and the catcalls from the crowd. Here's Johnny the Shining. Few moments in horror cinema are as chilling or as endlessly quoted as Jack Nicholson's manic delivery of "Here's Johnny" as he axes through a bathroom door in The Shining. But what many fans don't realize is that this terrifying, iconic moment was never part of the original script, and it nearly got cut entirely by the film's British director, who didn't even understand the reference. The Shining, directed by Stanley Kubrick and released in 1980, is based on Stephen King's novel of the same name. The story follows Jack Torrance, an aspiring writer and struggling alcoholic, as he becomes caretaker of the isolated Overlook Hotel with his wife Wendy and young son Danny. But as winter snow traps them inside, supernatural forces and Jack's inner demons push him toward madness. The infamous scene, Jack's final descent into homicidal mania, occurs when Wendy, played by Shelley Duvall, locks herself in the bathroom as Jack, wielding an axe, begins smashing through the door. It was only after American crew members explained the cultural significance, the cheerful, familiar phrase twisted into something horrifying, that Kubrick recognized its brilliance. Despite being unscripted, "Here's Johnny" became the defining quote from The Shining, referenced endlessly in pop culture. The flying champagne court Casablanca. In the world of classic Hollywood, every detail was meticulously controlled, or so audiences believed. But even in films as polished as Casablanca, accidents had a way of sneaking onto the screen and becoming part of movie history. Casablanca, released in 1942 and directed by Michael Curtiz, is considered one of the greatest films ever made. Set in Vichy-controlled Morocco during World War II, it tells the story of Rick Blaine, a cynical nightclub owner played by Humphrey Bogart, whose past comes rushing back when his former love, Ilsa Lund. In the pivotal scene where Captain Renault, played by Claude Rains, orders Rick's cafe closed, Rains delivers the famous line, "I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here." The line itself is a masterstroke of dry, ironic humor, highlighting the corruption beneath Casablanca's glamorous exterior. What few know is that during the filming of this scene, Claude Rains was supposed to casually open a champagne bottle as he delivered his lines. But when cameras rolled, the cork popped unexpectedly with a loud, off-camera pop, flying off in the wrong direction. Rather than break character, Rains seamlessly incorporated the accident into the scene. With perfect timing, he turned toward the sound, lifted his glass, and said the now famous follow-up, "Oh, please round up the usual suspects." The result? A humorous punctuation to the scene's tension perfectly captures the character's hypocrisy and the film's sardonic tone. Here's looking at you, kid. Casablanca. Sometimes, the most romantic lines in movie history aren't written by screenwriters, they're whispered between takes, tucked into off-camera moments, and later immortalized on screen. "Here's looking at you, kid." Released in 1942, Casablanca quickly became an enduring masterpiece of romance, sacrifice, and intrigue. Starring Humphrey Bogart as Rick Blaine and Ingrid Bergman as Ilse Lund, the film follows their tangled past love affair, reignited amidst the backdrop of World War II. It was during those games that Bogart, with characteristic charm, would toss out the phrase, "Here's looking at you, kid," a common expression of affectionate encouragement, popular among gamblers of the era. Observing the easy rapport between the two stars, the line was added to the script during the film's Paris flashback scenes. When Bogart slipped it into Rick's dialogue, it felt so natural, so effortlessly woven into their on-screen chemistry, that Curtiz immediately recognized its power. It wasn't the product of months of writing, but a spontaneous expression of warmth that naturally bled into the film's world. Today, the phrase is universally recognized, a symbol of love lost, bittersweet farewells, and the quiet dignity that defines Casablanca. I'm walking here, Midnight Cowboy. The streets of New York have always been unpredictable, and in the case of Midnight Cowboy, that unpredictability created one of the most iconic, unscripted moments in movie history. The line, "I'm walking here," has become shorthand for New York grit and attitude, but few realize that it was never in the script at all. Released in 1969 and directed by John Schlesinger, the film was shot on location in New York, often using hidden cameras to capture the city's authentic, chaotic energy. The production operated on a tight budget and couldn't afford to close down busy intersections. During one such scene, Hoffman and Voight are walking down the street, engaged in dialogue, when suddenly, a real taxi, unaware that filming was happening, runs a red light and nearly hits them. In a split-second reaction, Hoffman, fully in character as Ratso, slams his hand on the taxi's hood and shouts, "I'm walking here! I'm walking here!" Director John Schlesinger recognized the spontaneous magic of the moment and kept it in the final cut. That unscripted outburst, born of real danger and authentic frustration, became the film's most quoted line. "I'm walking here," encapsulates Ratso Rizzo's defiance. The mirror smash, Citizen Cain. The breaking point of Charles Foster Kane in Citizen Cain is one of the most visceral, destructive tantrums ever filmed, but the raw fury and real blood pouring from Orson Welles' hand were never part of the plan. Directed, co-written, and starring a 25-year-old Orson Welles, charting his ambition, loneliness, and ultimate descent into emotional ruin. The film's pivotal moment, Cain's rampage through his wife's bedroom after she leaves him, was intended to showcase his unraveling, with Cain methodically smashing objects in a controlled outburst. But when cameras rolled, real pain altered the scene. During filming, Welles's hand became caught on a cabinet drawer as he destroyed the set. The unexpected injury triggered genuine pain, which Welles, ever the consummate performer, channeled directly into his character's breakdown. Rather than stopping the scene, cinematographer Greg Toland, known for his technical brilliance, kept the cameras rolling. The lens captured Welles stumbling past, blood dripping, embodying the full collapse of Cain's powerful facade. Welles's commitment to the moment left the director and crew stunned. The final cut preserved the raw intensity, the blurred line between performance and reality. The sequence became one of cinema's most authentic depictions of rage and helplessness, not carefully choreographed, but emerging from the chaos of an accident and Welles' refusal to break character. The flying fruit, The Godfather. Sometimes, even in films as meticulously crafted as The Godfather, small accidents create unforgettable movie moments. Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather, released in 1972, is considered one of the greatest films ever made, chronicling the power struggles, loyalty, and violence within the Corleone crime family. One of its most memorable moments occurs when Sonny Corleone, played by James Caan, discovers his sister Connie has been beaten by her husband Carlo. But when the cameras rolled, Caan, immersed in Sonny's fury, improvised by grabbing a garbage can lid as a weapon, unintentionally knocking over the stand. Suddenly, oranges, apples, and lemons flew across the screen, bright splashes of color contrasting with the scene's gritty violence. Oranges appeared before major character deaths or acts of violence. Whether in Don Corleone's assassination attempt or at the dinner table, the citrus fruit evolved into an eerie harbinger of doom. This unplanned motif wasn't part of Coppola's original vision, but he leaned into it, cementing oranges as a symbol of approaching death throughout the Godfather trilogy. The dueling banjos illusion Deliverance. Sometimes, when movie magic happens, it's not because everything goes smoothly, it's because filmmakers improvise when faced with unexpected problems. Released in 1972 and directed by John Boorman, Deliverance follows four city men on a canoe trip through the Georgia wilderness that quickly descends into terror. Early in the film, the group encounters a young, eerie-looking boy who plays the banjo with unsettling precision, leading to the famous banjo-guitar duet. The boy, portrayed by Billy Redden, had the distinctive, otherworldly look Boorman wanted for the scene. But there was one significant problem. Redden couldn't actually play the banjo. Recasting wasn't an option, his appearance was too perfect. Instead, the filmmakers improvised. A skilled musician was hidden behind Redden, reaching through specially altered clothing to finger the instrument strings, while Redden mimed the plucking with his picking hand. Which of these stories surprised you the most? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more true tales from behind the scenes of Hollywood's most unforgettable moments.